Autism, the Hidden Epidemic, NBC News, in conjunction with Newsweek magazine, will bring you a week-long look at the disorder that the CDC says will affect 1 in every 166 children. And though there are no known causes or cures for autism, early detection and intervention can make a dramatic difference in the lives of children diagnosed with this disorder.
To me, it was like this little body just walking around without a soul, and it was very difficult.
He couldn't look at me, he wouldn't let me touch him, he wouldn't let me hold him.
Gross motor skills were delayed, fine motor skills weren't developing.
They didn't know anything about it. You know, all they knew was, oh, he's a genius like Rain Man. Well, not so much.
In order to get his attention, I would have to physically get up and touch him.
These are some of the early signs of autism. It's a neurological disorder characterized by a delay in understanding and using language, difficulties with social interaction, and a very narrow range of interests where children often develop repetitive actions. It can be obvious or subtle, ranging from the most severe form of classic autism to the most mild diagnosis called Asperger's syndrome. It affects both genders, but boys 4 times more than girls. A sibling of a child with autism has a higher chance of also developing the disorder. Bennett Myers was 1 when his parents, Stacy and Jay, realized he might have autism.
He had maybe 1.5 words. He had dada, sometimes mama. And then after about 12 or 13 months, he lost those words.
The toe walking was constant, the tensing of his entire body for almost like 5 seconds at a time.
He didn't really make eye contact. He didn't like to interact with people.
The Myers were careful to watch for signs because of a family history. Stacy is an identical triplet, and her sister's son, Austin, was diagnosed with autism 3 years ago. At 18 months, Stacy's son, Bennett, was also diagnosed. The Myers moved from Massachusetts to New Jersey so Bennett could attend the Princeton Child Development Institute, which teaches children with autism. They wanted Bennett to get intensive early intervention as soon as possible.
How old are you?
2. When a child is that young, their mind is so malleable, so you just have to move quickly.
Bennett received 35 to 40 hours of therapy a week, and Stacy also worked with her son at home.
You're a good boy.
2 years later, Bennett, now 4, attends a Montessori preschool.
Good morning, Bennett.
Good morning, Miss Teresa.
And is indistinguishable from his peers.
3, 4, 5.
Bennett is incredibly well-adjusted, very social, very talkative. He's caring, he's empathetic.
1, 10 bars.
He's very independent. He's a typical kid.
Early intervention studies indicate stimulating children with autism may foster actual neural connections.
What we're showing is that toddlers getting into intervention between 18 and 33 months of age will show considerable language improvement, both in terms of comprehension and expression in just 6 months' time.
What is this, honey?
Blue.
We're astounded when we think back about where he was 2 years ago and where he is now. It's unbelievable.
Psychologist Geraldine Dawson is the director of the University of Washington Autism Center. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Your heart breaks for the parents and the wonderful children who are diagnosed with autism. There's been a tenfold increase, I understand, in the past decade. Is there an epidemic going on here?
Well, as you say, there are many more kids being diagnosed with autism today than 10 or 20 years ago. And we know that part of the increase is better diagnosis. So we're able to detect autism in children at a much younger age, and also children with milder symptoms. But we don't know if better diagnosis explains all of the increase.
What causes autism, Geraldine? I guess that is the big question and such a mystery, isn't it?
It is a mystery, but we have some very important clues. Now, we know that genes are involved, but we don't think there's just one gene involved. In fact, if there were only one, we probably would have found it by now. Rather, we think there's somewhere between 5 and 10 genes that act like risk factors, and they make a child more susceptible to developing autism.
I know you've done studies, for example, infants who develop autism, and we have video of a 1-year-old child. What are some of the signs as we look at this videotape that this child may be developing the disorder?
Here, he's really paying mostly attention to the cake. Now, most babies in this situation would be looking first at the cake and then at the people and the environment. The other thing is that he's not really babbling. You notice he's not using his language to communicate with people around him. Also, by 12 months of age, we'd expect him to be gesturing. He's not doing that either.
We don't want to unnecessarily alarm parents out there. So how can you differentiate, Geraldine, a child who may have autism and a child who may be developmentally slow or prone to certain behaviors?
Well, I think one of the most important factors is that the child with autism is lacking many normal behaviors. And in addition, they have some unusual behaviors such as temper tantrums or repetitive behaviors. Now, typical kids will show tantrums, but not to the same degree.
Early intervention is key, is it not?
Absolutely. We know that kids who begin intervention during the preschool years have better outcomes. And we also know that for some kids with autism, this is the only way that they'll be able to learn to speak, to make eye contact. And many kids who receive these interventions can go on to a regular classroom, have a normal IQ, have friendships, and go on to lead a relatively normal life.
We'll be exploring some of the alternatives because it can be quite confusing in terms of the intervention you choose for your particular child. In closing, Geraldine, are you optimistic that some of these unanswered questions will be answered soon? I think for parents that must be extraordinarily frustrating.
Well, I hope it's encouraging that there are many, many scientists, and really more every day, that are devoting their careers to studying autism, and we really do hope to have answers as soon as possible.
Well, Dr. Geraldine Dawson, it's wonderful that people like you are devoting their lives
to
trying to find some answers to these questions. Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we should also tell you the CDC is announcing a national campaign this week called Learn the Signs, Act Early. You can find out more about autism on our website at today.msnbc.com, or you can go to autismspeaks.org. Later this morning, Unlocking the Secrets of Autism, we'll take a closer look at the potential causes. But up next, an exclusive